Welcome, everyone, to Less Painful Planning, the executive roundtable for finance, HR, and IT leaders at SAP organizations who are tired of defending stale numbers to the board. My name is Alistair Davis from Jabba, and I'll be your MC today. We support SAP partners like Improving and Demand Generation, and we help put on today's show. Really happy to have you with us. We've got some excellent speakers, a live customer story you'll want to hear, and a special offer coming up later. Quick housekeeping, you're muted, so if you have any questions, please drop them into the Q&A panel. We're going to have Q&A later, and we'll pass the questions on to the panelists. So the content is best caught in real time, and the offers we're going to talk to you about later are caught in real time. So you're one of the lucky ones. So whether you're on S4HANA, ECC, or somewhere between with spreadsheets holding it all together, you're in the right room. Industry research consistently says that FP&A teams spend between 70 and 80% of their time preparing and reconciling data, not analyzing it. That is the problem we're here to solve today. So what are you going to walk away with? A clear answer on what modern SAP native planning looks like, a live reference story from NorthRiver Midstream, who took a 4-month planning cycle down to 4 weeks, and an honest read on AI, where it actually helps in planning and where it doesn't. Your panel today, Sean Antonello, VP of Solution Delivery at Improving, will be hosting. Brady Verostek, Director of Commercial Operations at NorthRiver Midstream, our live customer. From SAP, we have Steve Christos, Business Data Cloud Solution Advisory for Planning and Analytics. And last but not least, Rodrigo Zacchinelli, Principal SAP BDC Architect at Improving. And one more thing. Improving is offering complimentary planning discovery conversations to attendees today. Spots are limited. This room gets priority, and details will be coming up. Sean, I believe you have a poll for us. Over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Alistair. All right. So folks, on your screen, you're going to see a poll. We thought, let's hear from you out of the gate before we really get into the meat of this. What we want to make sure we do today is cover what's relevant to you. Okay, so just take a look through those options, A through D. Which one of these best describes your planning cycle right now? Okay, take a second. There's no wrong answer here. Honestly, if you pick A, you're in good company. Prior to becoming a consultant, I lived in spreadsheets. I operated a 47-tab Excel file that really was the final version 3. Use this. I lived in Excel hell. Okay, and so obviously, if you pick A, I know your pain. If you pick D, very cool. You're here to see what's next. And so I think between A and D, we've got you covered with a lot of good content and exciting content. We're seeing the results coming in. Interesting. Looks like B may be the winner at this point. I think you're in good company. I think what you're going to hear today is really kind of exciting and interesting. It's a good segue. The questions in this poll really are here just to use the right tools. Steve, over to SAP just to provide us a bit of context around SAP and the painful planning.
Thank you, Sean. We've got a problem, right? Planning for all the different disruptions we face is simply not as easy as it was 15 or 20 years ago. Yet many companies still use the same tools that they've always used. That's why planning is still so painful for most finance and IT professionals. How many of you have ever been in a board meeting trying to defend a number that you weren't even completely sure was right yourself? Or you and maybe a colleague having the same exact analysis or reports with different numbers or different answers on it? That's not a people problem. That's a data architecture problem. Most mid-market SAP organizations have the transaction data, but it's fragmented across ECC, BW, even spreadsheets and one-off extracts that everyone likes to create. And FP&A is spending 70 to 80% of their time just trying to prep and reconcile that data. That's not being strategic. That's not analyzing it. That's literally getting the data up to a place where it can be consumed. This is not helping to steer the business. This is not being good stewards of your company's resources. If you're going to truly transform how we plan to make better and more timely decisions, we need to do things differently. As the great inventor Charles Kettering once said, if you've always done it that way, it's probably wrong. So SAP Business Data Cloud is that solution. It changes the equation. It's native, unified, and AI planning ready. It provides a unified governed data foundation that brings together financial and operational data from across the enterprise, enabling FP&A teams to automate planning, forecasting, and scenario analysis with real-time trusted information. This single platform breaks down silos, supports the integrated financial process, and empowers those data-driven decisions. Let me be clear, Business Data Cloud is not a replacement for what you have. It's the layer that you get that finally makes things work together. This is what the SAP roadmap has been building to, and NorthRiver is proof that it's real. Over to you, Rodrigo.
So let's talk here today about our data, right? So one of the biggest pain points for anyone doing financial or operational planning inside SAP environments, inside SAP tools, is having to rebuild the data outside of the ERP, right? So creating like integrations or a lot of spreadsheets or a lot of files and spend like a lot of hours trying to group all those information, all those data together in just one unique place. So this slide that I'm about to show you will tell you exactly how to solve that problem. So the first step is talking about our ERP, our data source, right? And it doesn't matter if it's S4HANA or it's still ECC, your starting point is where the data already lives. So inside your ERP, again, it doesn't matter if it's S4HANA or ECC, we don't need to move anything to get started. So we can start right now. The second box, the second step of our flow here is talking about Business Data Cloud and where this tool fits, right? So here we're going to talk about how the data flows from your ERP and jump into Business Data Cloud. For what? Just to unify everything in one unique place and have all your data, all your information AI ready for future needs. So no manual transformation, no manual mapping, no manual spreadsheets are required. So you just need to make sure that the connectivity and the integration is ready within your ESE, your ERP, and your Business Data Cloud. Okay, so what comes next? So what comes next is our Improving XI planning packages, designed straightforward for SAC. So imagine that you have pre-built content accelerators that will come across all your information, all your data, and will make your financial planning ready to start. So no rebuilding, no starting from scratch for a blank page. So everything ready-made package for finance, HR, and your operational planning. So, but again, what is the outcome? So what is the last step of this? So the result is going to be your one unique version of the truth. So shared across all your team members, shared across all your business areas, and there's no need for manual interaction. There's no need for manual sending files from here to there. Everything in a unique place. So your plans and your decisions can take place in just one spot. So before we summarize everything here, I would say that what makes everything compelling is the native integration. So again, I would say that again, because this is very, very important. No data extractions, no manual reconciliation, no lag. Planning is always going to be in sync with your ERP. Again, doesn't matter if S4HANA or ECC, it will always be in sync. And this will reduce time to value. So before I hand this to Sean for him to keep going in this webinar, I want to leave you guys with 3 questions to keep in mind as you hear what comes next. So how many versions of the truth does your organization have today? And how much time is lost aligning all those sources in just a unique place. So one more question for you. If your planning tool that you have today goes out of sync from your ERP, how long does it take for people to get notice that this is happening? And the last question will be, what would that mean for you if you could go live with your planning already connected to your ERP? So hold those questions, hold your thoughts, because the next story that Sean's going to present right now is where we are going to answer all those questions. Back to you, Sean.
Thanks, Rodrigo. So up next, we're going to talk through the NorthRiver Midstream story. To do that, I want to introduce Brady Virostek. He is the Director of Commercial Operations at NorthRiver Midstream, formerly the Director of Accounting. Brady was in a scenario where, everything was manual, and he's going to walk through how he went from manual processes into a more automated planning process. He's been where you are, and he's here to tell you the story about how he got where he is today.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining in the country or countries. My name is Brady Virostek. I'm Director of Commercial Operations here at NorthRiver Midstream, or NRM, as I'm going to probably refer to it throughout. But during the time of our implementation, I was Director of Accounting and Finance. A little bit of background on NRM. We're a fairly new company. We started back at the end of 2018 through some asset divestitures. From that point, we had to start everything from scratch, including ERP systems. So at that time, we undertook a big initiative implementing the new S4 HANA system, which was mainly out of the box, trying to get rid of a lot of the old customization that we had in the old predecessor ECC systems, which included a very basic out of the box BPC system for budgeting and forecasting. A part of our budgeting and forecasting system, our process was, like most accountants out there, done in Excel. We had a lot of manual Excel sheets, data dumps, Excel manipulation, and then BPC was there just to essentially copy and paste so we can get our budgeting and forecasts into S4 for reporting purposes. Like I said, this is a highly manual process that we were aggregating data from various sources, including HR, cost objects from work orders, projects, etc. It took almost our entire accounting team to have different processes, different hands touching at different points in the entire system, and it was a very timely process. For an example of this, we had one person responsible for pulling all the HR data, creating individual cost center summaries to send out to cost center owners, get forecast data back from those cost center owners, enter them into the cost center, and then send the cost center out for the variable planning. We had numerous data integrity issues, again, very time consuming, and we were not getting a lot of value added work done, a part of the budgeting and forecasting process. We were spending a lot of time reconciling our spreadsheets, reconciling the system after loads, and we were not doing a lot of analysis. We were not doing good justice to our stakeholders. And because it was such a time-consuming process, making changes or updates, the data became stale very quickly. When we do a 3 and 9 forecast, updating March actuals to do a rolling forecast, it was nearly impossible. We could not meet deadlines, and because the data was stale, we were not doing justice to our executive team. So as we looked for different options, after kind of implementation of S4, budgeting and forecasting was our next likely step to try and automate and make more efficient. We looked at different options that we really wanted to just automate. We didn't really want to revamp our process at this time. So we're really looking at a simple lift and shift that we could automate and create simple efficiencies right off the bat. When we talked to the Improving folks, they showed us the templated model that Rodrigo was referring to, and this was really appealing as it seemed to fit what we were simply doing in Excel, and it was a natural integration to S4. let alone the lower price tag was quite appealing, as we're a smaller shop here in Western Canada, and obviously keeping costs low is one of our priorities. As we worked with an improving team to implement, we chose 4 different models. There's a headcount planning model, a cost center planning model, capital planning, and simple revenue planning. The headcount model itself was the most appealing and complex of the entire project. It had a lot of risks, which our current process had a lot of risks. The model itself, we were able to come up with a model that could do a lot of complex calculations. I mean, we have 4 different unions and non-union folks, all with different pension and related adjustments. We had a confidential data feed from SuccessFactors, and we had to layer in our contractor workforce. The model essentially allowed for simple FT planning at the end, and where costs were automatically calculated and pushed out to cost centers. The rest of the models, for the most part, were pretty simple. It was planning by cost objects and GLs, but the headcount model was by far the most complex and had the most risk in our current environment. Overall, I think the project went quite well. We were able to implement and start using within 6 months, leaning a lot on the expertise of the improving team. The team understood our business processes right from the start. It was nice to talk to the improving folks that did not just talk IT lingo the entire time, which made our discovery phase quite simple. There's many discovery meetings where I was thinking we were going in, talking about whiteboarding. We'd go through our process and Rodrigo would say, okay, doable. That was it. It was very simple. So we had that great relationship right from the start. Our timeline for the implementation was quite aggressive. In hindsight, that we should have probably been more realistic, especially learning SAC. As a new user to SAC, we should have spent more time just understanding the nits and grits of SAC. This would have alleviated some of our training and time it took to understand the design. So through UAT and design, there's a lot of back and forth just because our folks were simply trying to understand a lot of the SAC as it was a new system to us. I give it to the folks on the team. Improving was very patient during this process. I give them a lot of credit, as there's a lot of rework and calculation just to give us the desired outcome we wanted to do. Another learning would have been from our side, having the right IT internal resource along for the ride. We had a bit of a gap internally on not having the right IT folks on the project, where when it became to do the handoff after UAT, there's a lot of back and forth trying to understand from our side and the improving folks. So having the right IT along for the ride is probably one of the other learnings that we realized. So after using the models now for over a year, we've seen our budgeting and forecasting timeline reduce significantly. Months became weeks, which was a very time-consuming process, turned into updates that are almost right at your fingertips. We have a single source of truth, which we didn't really have before. We had many sources of truth in many different spreadsheets, but now we're down to one, which means a lot less reconciliations, I think virtually none. And the time it allowed us to do the time to do proper analysis, giving real-time feedback to our stakeholders. The non-finance folks in our organizations have seen this extremely useful. It allowed them more flexibility in reviewing and doing their own updates. Our organization was heavily reliant on accountants, managing the entire process, hand-holding various non-finance stakeholders. We now have 9 non-finance stakeholders in the system, touching SAC at the real time. And the quicker updates have allowed for more robust scenario modeling. Scenario modeling wasn't really a thing of our past, but now we're getting into various aspects of scenario planning, which has allowed our executive team to model out various different things as we go through our 5-year planning. This was our real first taste of true analytics. We're not a big Power BI user, or I'm haven't drank that Kool-Aid. So having this types of analytics tool, it has unlocked for easier, timely reporting. We have created dashboards out of SAC, templated reporting that was touch of a button, and has changed our month-end process and completely overhauled even our close cycle. The dashboards have allowed us to talk to stakeholders in a more meaningful way, which has allowed for more meaningful meetings, more efficient, and allowed for on-the-spot decision-making. As this was our first step to automation, we have recently embarked on a mini project with Improving. We have created a more thorough revenue planning model, which we can plan revenue at a contract and customer level. So just getting more finer details into the system that allows analytics to essentially take place after that. Our SAC roadmap has expanded drastically since just putting the footsteps in. We have a plan to do better cash flow forecasts, get treasury reports, and making our financial statements click of a button, just like our month-end process. Reflections. I think overall, it was nice to see something work that you're actually sold. We had a lot of hesitation, I'll say, as we've seen many different companies try and sell us things in the past that haven't really worked out to their true form. But this truly was kind of what we expected from the get-go of what we were sold to what we're using today. And it's truly nice to have that partnership with Improving to allow us to open more doors and have future growth and opportunities with SAC. I guess the lessons learned from the project itself, in the grand scheme of things, it was a truly successful project. The minor bumps that were there were not roadblocks. And even though there is lessons learned, which there is in every single project, it's things that probably were minor and wouldn't change a whole lot in the project overall. And that's all I had, Sean, so back to you.
Awesome, Brady. Thank you for that. I just truthfully think that that's a great walkthrough of the project. I know it's hard to do in 10 minutes, but yeah, definitely relatable. You know, that's NorthRiver's story. What we want to do now is just really open this up. You know, what Brady walked through isn't unique to midstream energy. You know, it's not unique to organizations greater in size. It's not unique to organizations that are smaller. The same situation is relatively consistent. You know, in the 15 years of consulting, I've heard the same thing from finance and finance leaders over that course of time. So what we want to do is really just get into what this actually means for team members in the room. Okay, so gonna ask some questions and sort of get some dialogue started here. Again, I would encourage everybody in attendance to put questions in the Q&A. We will definitely get to those later on in the presentation. So Brady, I apologize. I know you just spoke for 10 minutes, but I'm gonna lead with you. Before this project, what was a moment that you knew the BPC-based process, you know, wasn't sustainable? Was there a specific event? You know, was there a board meeting? Was there a specific planning cycle where, you know, the decision was made that we needed to make a change and that NorthRiver needed, you know, something better?
I don't think it was a single event per se. It was probably numerous lead-up events, I'd say. Like, we weren't a heavy user of BPC. It's more the Excel based, I would say. But there was many meetings through the 5-year planning or even normal forecasting cycle that me as presenter, we'd have this lovely presentation up and we'd be going through all the financial data and, oh, as you tick and bob some numbers on slides, they don't exactly match. And it leaves you as a presenter in a bad place because then you have data integrity issues, you're second guessing yourself. It doesn't really have a lot of trust in the finance team that we're really capable of doing what we're saying we're doing, or there's no trust in the numbers. So there's a lot of rework, a lot of going back to the drawing board to make sure that things reconcile. So we had a couple of those meetings that after that, we knew that automation needed to happen. We need to simplify our process. We needed to get out of Excel. And with a new fancy S4 system that we were in, it was just the next step for our journey. We got comfortable in our overall process after S4. What we weren't comfortable in was our budgeting and forecasting. So really after that, we took our business case to the CFO and to the CEO, and it was very quickly approved and never looked back after that.
Amazing. Pretty consistent, I'd say, probably with a lot of organizations. There's not one single compelling event, but sort of a build up over time. I know finance tends to be a bit of the ninja. They'll do what needs to happen to get the job done. But glad to know that obviously there's light at the end of the tunnel. All right, Rodrigo, a question for you. Improving has planning packages. Those planning packages were the foundation of what was built at NorthRiver Midstream. But we hear it all the time. Every customer's data model is different. So where does Accelerator end and where does custom work begin? And how do you sort of manage that scope conversation?
Okay. So before I start answering your question, I would add something that's very important. So it depends on where you are in your journey for automating your process and automating your financial planning process into a new system. But if you have nothing or you have just like Excel spreadsheets, of course, when you are jumping to a system, everything will change. This is where the packages will allow you to see that you don't need to start from scratch. You don't need to start from zero, right? So even though the models in the based on the customers, they can be different, in the core, in the essence, is the same. So we're going to talk about company codes. We're going to talk about cost center. We're going to talk about profit center, customer, CapEx, projects, whatever it is. They're all similar. And there is where our packages jump into the project. So we can start with that piece already done. And then we're going to talk about customizations, custom calculations, a new dimension or a new field that we need to add to our model. But again, the key and the secret will be not starting from scratch, not starting from zero. So that's where, again, our packages will place a very good position in our projects to speed up the implementation and also to show the customer and to show the teams that what SAC can do. This is also very important. It's not only a blank page that we can do whatever you want to do, copy your Excel and put into SAC and that's done. So what else SAC can provide? So coming with a solution that it's not a blank page and you actually will show the art of the possible of a planning solution also speeds up the project.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Rodrigo. And I know Brady mentioned in his section really around the labor planning, right, being the most complex piece, the most risk piece, and I would say, how do you address that, or how would you address that with a customer?
Yeah, that's the most complex one for sure in any customer, in any implementation, because HR, even though it's a recipe, at the end, the ingredients of the recipe will change, right? So of course, we're going to start with cost center or business areas, and we have the employee level or the position level or both in NorthRiver case. And then we need to tackle what is the specific needs for the business. As Brady said, the unions and the benefits or the taxes or how we calculate things, how we calculate FTEs or headcounts. So this is always going to a deeper discussion with the team. And of course, hearing back from the team, from NorthRiver's team, to understand what's coming, what are the rules, to understand if they have actually the rules very well defined is also the key. So I will go back to Brady's team to thank them because they have everything very well structured in order to give to us the proper rules to apply to the system.
Awesome. Steve, SAP, let's go. So NorthRiver, they moved from BPC, and we know it was more just data collection in BPC to SAP Analytics Cloud. Sounds like a journey, and a journey that we know a lot of customers are on right now. What do you think is the biggest misconception that companies have about the migration before they start?
Sean, that's a great question. And to your point, yes, we have a lot of legacy customers on BPC asking this very similar one. I'm backed as my first part of my answer, right? BPC to SAC is not simply a technical or functional lift and shift, if you will. People that have made the journey, you'll note it's not a like for like replacement. It is a strategic initiative and best realized or thought about almost like a business transformation project as well, right? You're going to involve some process design, data harmonization, and certainly to Brady's point earlier, far more user enablement to take full, leverage those cloud capabilities, excuse me, and support that modern integrated planning process. Um, I noticed this, Sean, much like you, my background in accounting, most of our customers take this opportunity of a project like this to really kind of pull back the covers on what their planning process looks like now, right? So it's not, again, just a technical upgrade, but maybe a process efficiency as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. Brady, I'm going to come back to you. You talked about training, right, and sort of underestimating the change management piece. And so obviously that's sometimes harder than technology, right? We know that having to bring people along, learning new technology isn't always easy. So I'm just going to dig in a bit. You said, needed more time for training and enablement. How did NorthRiver bring that extended finance team along? And, what are you sort of seeing now from an end user's perspective now that they're in SAC?
Great question. And we'll reiterate, accountant's almost best friend is Excel. It's hard to pull an accountant away from their Excel sheets. We had a few people becoming super users in the team, which helped advocate for the new processes. But what was, and I don't know if this is out of the box, maybe Rodrigo can correct me or not, but the Excel add-on that SAC has allowed for that easy change management from an accountant perspective. So they were able to work and feel in Excel with those automatic updates going straight into SAC, which helped a lot in the initial stages. What we've seen recently as some of the Excel add-ons that have kind of dropped off and people are working directly in the web-based version. But this has now grown beyond finance. Now that finance is an advocate for the new process and SAC, we've now had various stakeholders throughout the organization reach out wanting access to SAC because they like that real-time feel of data at their fingertips. They like to manipulate things. They like to play with charts. So we've now grown that user base to just beyond finance at this point, where even our CFO can dabble into SAC at any point during the budgeting process and see where our numbers are at. So it's really allowed for more user availability in SAC in the budgeting and forecasting process. I hit on this a little bit, but on our month-end process as well, like having that analytics tool, like it's drastically cut down that month-end close. We're doing real-time variancing in SAC, holding all that data in SAC now, where even that month-end reporting piece that was heavily done in Excel is now right there in your grasp in SAC. So it's really overhauled a lot of the accounting processes. And us just dabbling in the dashboard side of things recently, and as Steve kind of alluded to, it's really user-friendly. We have almost all of our accountants creating various dashboards for their stakeholder groups and allowing those stakeholders to have access to that, to review it, and to also play with the reports themselves. So it is really user-friendly, and it's unlocked tremendous doors throughout the organization already.
Awesome. Thanks, Brady. We're sort of at the top of our time, and I see that there's some questions coming in the Q&A. So I promise we'll get to those. There's a dedicated Q&A session to sort of happen as we get a bit further. What I want to sort of do, and thank you, panel, obviously, for answering these questions. What I want to do before we move on is just take a quick pause. If what Brady described sounds familiar, there's something specific that we've set up for people in this room. Okay, and so what you're going to see on the screen here is a QR code. If you go to chat, you're going to see a link that you can click on. What we're doing is offering a complimentary planning discovery conversation. 30 to 45-minute working session with your team. It's not a demo. It's not a pitch. There's no commitment. We're just really trying to look at your current planning process and see how you align, much like NorthRiver, around a fit gap to our planning content. Registering also puts you in the draw to win a fit gap analysis. So really the blueprinting exercise associated with an implementation, that's the exact blueprint exercise that NorthRiver Midstream went through. It's going to identify where there's gaps, data inconsistencies, and really develop that project plan forward. QR codes on your screen. I would encourage you to register. Like I said, there's no commitment, and the goal here is really let's have a conversation and really get to the meat of what you're trying to do and how improving can help. So I think now we'll keep it going. AI is a topic I know that everybody is hearing these days, and there's different flavors and different opinions on AI, how AI fits in with planning, and where it doesn't. We're going to pass it over to Steve from SAP. Steve, over to you, and let's learn more about AI do's and don'ts.
Thanks again, Sean. Let's talk about some of those AI use cases. What actually helps versus what's actually just adding complexity. One of the questions we always get is, so where does AI fit into planning? Let me be completely direct on this. AI in planning is real, but the version that's being sold in most vendors' deck is not the same version that's going to help you plan going forward. So what are some of those practical use cases for AI that are working right now? Driver-based forecasting, right? Letting AI surface which business drivers actually move the number. Anomaly detection. Flagging exceptions before your FP&A team has to go hunting for them. Scenario modeling. Model 5 scenarios in the time that it used to take just to model 1. And certainly variance explanations, right? AI actually explaining, consolidating, and rolling up all the variances between your budgets and your actuals. What adds complexity, to be honest, is trying to use AI before your data is ready for AI, right? So we all have heard the note before, garbage in, garbage out, same concept here. Trying to replace planners, right? AI is a helping hand. It amplifies. It doesn't replace what the planners can do. It's trying to remove a lot of the non-value add tasks that they need to perform. And creating a bunch of custom models before that foundation is right. So once, just like the data, the model has to be made, has to be sound before you can start using it to leverage better business decisions. So what adds complexity? These things that I've just said here. Focus on the things that are in the columns on the left. What are your thoughts on this, Rodrigo?
All right, folks. So we've got another poll for you, okay? And this one's going to be a little less focused on where you are today and a little more focused on what's actually in the way. So if we look at what's the biggest barrier to shortening your planning cycle, okay? You'll see we've got more options here. Take a second with this one. It's a bit tricky. There's 5 options. And I'd be willing to bet that there's more than one that some of you would like to select here. So just give it some thought, and we'll certainly think about the one that is driving the biggest pain. It's never just a simple item. Is the data messy? Is the team attached to their spreadsheets? I know we heard Brady say they are. From my experience with finance, we definitely know they are. Are we waiting for exec sponsorship really to say, let's move ahead with the project? Okay. And so fundamentally, we know that there's a lot of reasons why there's pain. Interesting results coming in here. We've got a dead tie between, we're seeing some movement here now. It looks like it's perhaps a bit of a mix of both. Right? We're just not sort of unified or ready there with data. And number 2, we don't have exec buy-in. And so again, not an uncommon place to be. What we strive to do, obviously, is help build the business case to get executive sponsorship. Having a conversation and understanding your options is certainly a good place to be to really understand the return on investment that you can see. Obviously, the same return on investment that NorthRiver saw. Perfect. So I think this brings us into our Q&A section. So we have a few questions. I want to make sure that we get to those questions that came in through the Q&A first. And so we can tackle those. So a question came in earlier from Samhita. Okay, and the question is, how did you take care of all the manual adjustments post-automation? Are you using any Excel model aside from SAC to create your plan and then uploading it into SAC? So Brady, I'm going to say that this is a question for you, really around, is Excel still in play post go live in SAC?
We're almost fully, I'd say 95% all in SAC. The only part that's outside of SAC, which we're working on as the mini project right now, was our revenue modeling. We had a different team own that process. So we were really just getting an output from that model and then essentially uploading it into SAC in the past. We're now creating that model in SAC. But for on-top adjustments, which every forecasting budgeting process has, we created almost adjustment type line items in our models to do the on-tops. So when all the users go in and do their GL-based forecasts, or even from the headcount model, and you push that down into the cost center, and numbers just need to be adjusted just because something just isn't right, or there's a nuance there that needs to be adjusted. We've created line items in our models for those types of adjustments, so that when you roll it all in, it's in the GL, but it's in the back end through an adjustment type line item. I don't know, Rodrigo, if there's anything you want to add to that, but
yeah, just in a technical perspective, I would say that it's very easy to control those adjustments, the manual inputs into the system, and for the team to be able to track down later where this value or where this entry came from. So if it was coming for a calculation, if it was coming for a data entry, or if it was coming just for a manual input to the system. So technically speaking, it's not a big deal. And for the user, everything's automated at the end.
Awesome. And we had another question come in. It wasn't clear if this is before or after the implementation of SAC. Okay, so I am going to go with post SAC implementation. What part of the planning cycle takes the most time for your team? Data prep, spreadsheet consolidation, which might allude that this was pre-SAC, approvals, or reforecasting?
If we go definitely combining the data, getting all the data downloaded, aggregating the data, tying out the data. Our headcount modeling by far was the pinhole in the entire process. Especially if we look at cost center, you need to do our labor planning before we can do any of the variable cost planning in the cost center. So having that entire process, which I said, it's a really back and forth between cost center owners, as you need to get the FTE adjustments back, input into the system so that the cost center can review that and then look at all the rest of the variable costs that go into their cost center planning. So that by far was the most rigorous, time-consuming process. In the current world, that's still probably, quote, the most time-consuming, but is down to days at this point. We're still reliant on that cost center owner going in and adjusting their ones and twos on the FTE and the headcount planning to do the actual labor calculations. That labor calculation is then pushed into the cost center planning tool. So there's still that stage in the process, but it's cut down to days instead of weeks or months.
Awesome. And Rodrigo, from your perspective, where do you see customers after an implementation spending their time? What do you think the most time-consuming piece is?
I would say right now it's evaluating the data and analyzing the data to see if the number is accurate or if they need to do any kind of adjustments for the forecast versions later on in the year. Instead of preparing all this data, dump everything to an Excel file or to many Excel files and start reconciliating the data. So again, coming to your question is analyzing the final data after calculation, if that number makes sense, instead of tracking that number to see if the number is actually accurate into the end.
Perfect. Thanks, Rodrigo. Steve, I'm going to throw a question your way. Question, what's the biggest mistake you see teams make when they try to do this without a partner? You've been around, you clearly have seen a lot of implementations. Just curious on your perspective.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and certainly one that I've heard many, many times. Here at SAP, we believe we created a class-leading planning platform that's going to enable users to kind of take to the system as quickly as they can, right? That being said, there's nothing like having an expert in your pocket, so to speak, that's been there and done that before. The one thing I always encourage our prospects and customers to do when searching for the right SI, it's exactly what Improving is great at, right? And that is having accountants that understand the technology versus having technologists that are trying to understand accounting, right? It's those business processes, all the little nuances of a planning process. That's the experience you want to lean on. The technology itself is the easier part of that equation and an implementation in my eyes.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Rodrigo, along similar lines, okay, I'm going to blend this question. What's the most common thing that you think or you see that slows a project down that really isn't technology related? Is it data? Is it change management? Like what from your perspective would you say in your experience with implementations that's the cause?
Yeah, most of the time that I can see is the ability that people want to change for a new thing. So change management, as you said, is a key, and there's a process to that to change people's mind to a new system and to adapt to a new process. But even though some customers, they do not have that person or that area to help them through this journey. So I'd say the most critical one today is for the team to understand they are part of a changing, and sometimes change can be tricky to your process and to your daily based activity, and you need to adapt to a new thing. So maybe having someone to guide them through the process, to guide them to the system, guide them to the new tool, will help them understand that we are there for the better good, for the greater good later after the implementation. So I would say also to Brad's team at NorthRiver, it was crucial seeing that the team was very open for a change. Even though the process would be at the end similar, they were willing to change, to get away from Excel and starting to actually use a new system that was meant to be a financial planning analytics tool, right? So that'll be the key. So having people in the team that actually need to change and they want to change.
Awesome. Thank you, Rodrigo. We see this question a lot, okay? And so I'm going to ask it in two lenses. So Brady, first to you. What does the IT operating model look like after planning consolidates into SAC? So from a NorthRiver perspective, I guess, did you see a change in IT ownership or governance of the planning system and the move from BPC to SAC?
Yeah, quite a bit. Like we've always had the model here that business owners should own their process, including IT applications. With us not in a very customized environment of S4, that was quite simple to some extent, but there's always that reliance on IT. SAC is quite different, especially in our planning process. After we kind of went live and we were happy with our data there, it's really our admin roles in the accounting group that truly have control of the entire process. It's not too often, I'd say at this point, that we're ever reaching out to IT, which is probably nice on both fronts. I mean, IT has a little bit more time to dig into other bigger issues, and we're not held up in our process by any means. And it's allowing for those efficiencies overall to kind of be realized in real time.
Awesome. And Steve, same question to you. Like, I know SAP obviously sells the vision that SAP Analytics Cloud, Business Data Cloud really intended to be, business-owned solutions. Are you seeing that, in practice across SAP's ecosystem?
Yeah, excuse me, Sean. Yeah, no, absolutely. The planning story is evolving, right, towards a highly connected, real-time, AI-driven planning process. And we enable that with our foundational integration between BDC and SAC. Look, I'll be the first to admit that accountants, including myself, are not always the most open to change, especially when we start hearing words like AI, right? So it's hard to believe or fathom that that can actually make our jobs easier or be a helpful assistant. But that world is here, right? And we have done countless amounts of industry surveys that suggest that CFOs have in the top three, probably FP&A as one of the spaces where they want to align AI dollars to some project use cases that they have. And you're going to see that to continue, right? So to Brady's point, the less IT has to babysit the system, the more value accountants will get out of it. And certainly SAC and BDC can help foster that.
Awesome. All right, Rodrigo, a quick question for you. I know we probably have some HR folks on the line. How does the labor planning model in SAC connect to the financial plan? So how does HR and finance talk, and how does that streamline the process?
Yeah, great question. It's very common to hear those during our design sessions and explore phases how we're going to connect our end numbers into the finance data, right? So basically, after our implementation, and our labor model is, I would say, 95% related to how we calculate our labor planning with employees or position. But at the end, once we have our dollars, our currency, our money, we need to send this back to finance for conciliation for P&L, for example, right? So basically, there's a step at the end that we calculate everything and allocate all the numbers into the proper GL accounts. And once that's done, we usually give to the users the possibility for them to do any kind of manual adjustments. Of course, everything will be tracked to an audit version, I would say, to an audit dimension. And that calculation, that sum up between calculate the numbers plus the adjustments, we send it over to finance model. So the finance model will just receive the GL accounts in the proper format, in the proper dimensions for reporting purposes.
Awesome. Brady, final question. If you're going to talk to an organization who's about to embark on this journey, what advice would you give them, if anything?
Do it. Get on the track. As Steve said, like, we can't just dwell in Excel. Like, we have to adapt to the technology that's available to us. And SAC being one of those simple ones, in my view, that is easy to adapt and is very user friendly. It really will allow you to realize those efficiencies that we drive for. And as senior leaders, we want to see in our organization. If you have something where your team can truly add more value added work to the organization and less administrative type roles, we're really driving to a better, faster, spot decision driven organization where we're having better conversations throughout the organization.
Awesome. Again, thank you all for your time here with the Q&A. Really appreciate it. So if there's anything that I think you need to take from today's session, it's going to be one of these 4 items. First off, planning really is a data problem. Okay, it's not a people or a process problem. Fundamentally, at its core, it is a data problem. Resolving the data issue means you spend less time putting information together and more time being strategic. Second, 4 months to 4 weeks. Yeah, I know, it sounds like a brochure. It is realistic. As Brady walked through NorthRiver Midstream's project, you get the sense, right, that we used an accelerator and that he is seeing true value. The time spent on data reconciliation is gone. The team is more strategic, and that allows a compression of the planning timeline. Third, configure, don't construct. We have accelerators based on best practice that we've seen with 50 other customers. The heavy lift is done. Let's take that base and let's configure it to your specific needs. Last, get the foundation right. That data foundation is critical for AI. AI can do wonderful things. AI can support our planning process, but it's only going to work if the data foundation is right and it's based on true and accurate information. The goal here simply should be your team should not be wrangling data. They should be doing more strategic analysis based off of the information that's available. So I want to say a big thank you. First of all, thank you to our panel, Brady, Steve, Rodrigo. Thank you for walking us through the NorthRiver Midstream and SAP scenario. Very helpful. I want to thank all of our attendees today. Hopefully what you heard today resonates and that you can see value in the offer. In those lines, if you'd like to book a complimentary planning discovery conversation, you can use the QR code on the right-hand side of the screen or click the link in the chat. Ideally, we're setting up a 30-minute planning conversation. There's no commitment. It really is going to be tactical 30 minutes around your process and how your process can be improved using the methodology that we used at NorthRiver Midstream. So I would encourage you to click the link, book your time, and we will get you the recording here within 24 hours.